Recorded April 17th, 2024. Good afternoon, Brody. What's up?
What's up, man? It's 2024. Oh, I gotta start changing the dates I'm putting on my checks.
I know, man. Right? Right? And
I'm, do, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good overall. It's busy, man.
who
Busy.
you who
Running.
you who you
Yeah.
telling, man? And I'm more busy. I'm actually taking some PTO to catch up on some things. And and I seem even more busy now. I guess when my wife sort of looked at my calendar and realized, oh, you're off and you didn't tell me. You got things to do around here. All right. I'm
Weird.
like, Okay, we'll go that route. But no, man, I um been geeking out a little bit. Some stuff I wanted to play with in the lab. Um, um, Hello Noodle. Upgraded my Meraki's. It was time for the license to be renewed. It was painless this time. Go figure. Remember, it was an entire month worth of show. If I couldn't get the Meraki's to
Oh
work,
yeah, right. I
I
remember that.
I did something that I told you I was going to do. I saved the config before I did anything. 2 copies of it. So if anything crapped, I would just run it back and put it back. But this time, I
That's
wrote
resiliency.
I documented it right.
All right.
Put a
Right.
change control in, and he said, "Did you upgrade them? Putting them in the skip?" No, I didn't. I actually went ahead and updated it, and I don't skip maintenance on them, Noodle. They said they're going to do it, but since I bought a new security appliance, what I did was, I sort of did. Noodle asked, "Did you put your Meraki's in skip?" I said, "I really sort of did." Because I have 2 different models of the security appliance. They sometimes can run different firmware levels. If you want to run them in a pri, and a secondary or high availability, they have to have the same firmware. They can't be out. So I sort of keep it at the lowest one. So if one fails over, it goes to the other. But if you get them too far apart, then they won't fail over. And they actually got a cool thing that I added in. We keep having circuit outages here. So what I did was when I'm not traveling with my hotspot, I just turn it on and leave it on and plug it into the back of it. So if it senses that the main fiber connection down, it jumps on the hotspot and then it'll use that for internet. And I'm like,
Nice. Nice
yeah,
spillover.
yeah, there's nothing else, man. And um,
You're like the
uh,
smartest sales guy I know.
I know, right? I can
Yeah.
sell it
Right.
and I can install it.
And you can
And
and you can lift. You can lift a whole server rack, folks.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I did the um, ninja training for Copilot for security and got my little certificate today.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
It's a nice looking certificate.
I
Let's
know,
pull
right?
that up. Where is that? I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see. I'm going to download it so no one can see my teams in the background. I don't get in trouble.
Noodle says,
Okay.
in the Netherlands, man, when we say put them in the skip, that means the trash. Oh, no, I
Oh,
did not put them in the trash.
that's good. Okay, let's share a specific screen. Where is it?
Stop it, Noodle.
Here
Quit hating on
it
Meraki.
is. Here is Edward. Can you see that? Is that working?
Yeah, look at
Here
that.
is Edward's certificate of completion. Great
You-
job, Edward.
Yeah,
Signed Copilot team.
I needed a trophy since I failed miserably in my forensic exam. But I tell you what, Brody, thank you so
What?
much for saying go back and take that exam, Ed. And now that I'm rereading the books, they totally read different. I mean, it's
Oh,
just totally read
yeah.
different. And I'm
Well,
going
it's
through my
Intel. Like, it was you and another amazing person in my life, Catherine, who I hope listens. We don't know, but she's like, hey, just take the exam, and then you get Intel, and then you really know, right? Then you really know, and then you can just take it again. And I tell you, man, if you just go the whole summer, this is gone. I don't know about you. I got a goldfish. It's gone, right? Like especially the summer, you're busy outside.
yeah,
You're socializing, right?
yeah.
You're not. Yeah. So like,
But I'm
either take
telling
it
you,
now or don't.
as I'm reading it now, it is totally it. What I'm retaining now is different than the way I read it and comprehended it. So I'm going through the book. I'm like, hmm, 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 mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Flew
Yeah.
through book one, set it down. So I'll
You're
be
skimming
ready.
it now, right? You're just kind
Not
of going
really,
over the
not
highlights.
not really skimming it. It's like I was reading the book and every other word was incomprehensible because I didn't know the cipher. Now I know the cipher, which is I took the
Okay.
exam. So, like you said, you did recon. Now I know the cipher to decode the words that were obfuscated inside the thing. So now I got it right.
Sweet.
But but no, real good. And Frank gave me some good advice. I talked to Frank about it, and he's like, "Dude, you good." He
Per-
took it. He didn't do it. I think a couple of times, and he didn't pass. And he's like, man, but did you learn anything? I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, learn a
yeah.
lot. A lot of the stuff I put into my lab around logging, and I said, man, this is tedious. Let me write a PowerShell script or write some GPOs that can automatically go in. Like you can go to a customer and say, hey, where's your centralized storage? All right, I'm gonna run these GPOs in your environment, and this is gonna turn all these applicable logins that you need to do. And since I love working with MDI, a lot of them affect the way you log with MDI, with Microsoft Defender for Identity, around object access and things like that, and group. And so I'm like, let me just write this out. So now I'm gonna put me a little cheat sheet together, and I suspect places like Microsoft Dart does the same thing, right? When they come in, they're like, hey, we got to do this. But what if you did this in advance? Because when these folks come to your environment post breach, I think I said it on the show, they burn the first 40 to 80 hours worth of work getting your environment ready to be forensic. I made up a word. That nothing's in place,
Yeah.
right? And then the people do dumb stuff like turning off the systems. Hey, look at who's here, Rod. What's up, Rod?
You know what? I'm not a Logitech fan anymore.
Rod, I swear it started happening. So for those who are listening, Rod's camera's been weird the last couple episodes. And I swear it started happening when you pushed those buttons to apply filters to your mic audio the other day. Because it was
Really,
fine up
Ray?
until then. And it makes no sense to me
Mm-hmm.
because you've done a reboot and all this jazz. So I don't know. We'll do some offline diagnosis, but we can see you mostly. You'll just be a little bit lagged. We're on AOL. It's okay. But we can hear you just fine. And that's the important
Yeah. Well, you have mail, so
They have mail.
yeah.
Oh, that's
And
all I
then
did, Brody. What did you do? I
sick.
know you've been swamped, Brody. What's going on with you, brother?
Yeah, well, I'm closing off a project, which is great. We did a big demonstration of, hey, yeah, cheers. I got actually an alcohol-free cocktail here. So there we go. Mm-mm. Ooh, margarita. Ole margarita.
Yeah,
Not
red cups of
sponsored. We're not
cream.
sponsored yet, but maybe ole.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
nice
right
one.
here takes like good credit.
Nice.
Hmm.
Anyway, that project has been around focusing on Microsoft's identity and data zero trust pillars. And we built a demonstration environment for this customer, and we're showcasing it and the capabilities. And there's a follow-on engagement that's focused solely on data. And I think we're laying good groundwork to hopefully be able to keep going and dive deeper into the data sphere.
Hmm.
So that's wrapping up and just getting ready for the demo. Is I always like nailing it. I like nailing it. So I'm like practicing and I'm making sure I got all my windows ready to go and
Hmm.
everything's where it needs to be and I've accounted for shenanigans as much as you can do. So that was like a big part of my prep this week. And then I'm also working a lot with Azure Policy right now. And it's like kind of a crash course in Azure Policy because they brought me on for reasons. Okay. It just made sense for me to do this from a approval standpoint. I'm trying to be vague, and but I hadn't really touched it before. I've just had osmosis learnings through engagements that I'm on, and I'm learning all about the ins and outs of it. And ultimately, what this customer wants to do is they want to make sure that they can report to auditors against the infrastructure in their environment, and they can make sure X is compliant or Y is compliant. And it's not just Azure Policy, which is an enforcement engine, but it's also like Defender for Cloud, vulnerability management signals, and things like that. So it's a lot of cool areas I haven't really touched a lot on in a professional capacity, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning to read the code pretty quick. And like for instance, there's some policies that are they're just they're in Azure Policy, um, but there's nothing to them, and it totally confused us. They're just manual. So that if you look into the code of the policy, it's
Hmm.
like validate vulnerability scans. But like you look into the code, and it's just the shell of the policy. It's like the name. It's not actually checking the vulnerability. It's like, why would you put that in there in the first place? And like obviously from the Microsoft platform side, at the enterprise level, you would use Defender for Cloud as that kind of vulnerability detection and reporting engine. So it's like kind of learning, like, why is this even a policy? This isn't the right approach. I consulted on going in a different direction, and the team and I came to a good conclusion on that. So it's actually been really intellectually stimulating work because it's been hard and I've had to
Hmm.
like get into it, and I've had little or no background, and I kind of work best when I'm under pressure and I have to learn on the fly. So
That's the way we wired. That's how we survive. Those
yeah.
Yeah.
who do not adapt get eaten. It is so funny you said that. I got asked to help out with something because I started off. It seemed like I started off with everything, but when I started at Microsoft, I was a CSA. But if you want something that'll give you a ground reference, and it's just crazy that I was helping out with something today. Go look at Azure landing zones, because the landing zone references talk about how you have these landing zones around the two major zoning postures, which is platform, which is networking, compute, resource groups, platform, and the other is application, whereas you are delivering the application from your tenant as a service to a client, not that.
Yeah.
And so when you look at those, I went to the Git. It gives you a lot of references, and as you hit deploy, it'll throw it into your production, and it looks empty, just like you said. But it sets up the way your VNet should be, your way your resource group should be. They should be deployed this manner. This is how key subscriptions are built back to resources that allow you for very detailed cost analysis. So if you just go look at it'll fortify your learning. Go look at landing zones.
I will.
And I got real interested. Oh my God, this is actually pretty cool. You can build out your entire your tenant operational landscape by deploying these frameworks. And the cool part about it, your mileage may vary. I'm not saying go do this, but when I did it in my lab, it didn't affect production. It's not invasive. Now it'll create a lot of empty artifacts that you may have to go clean up.
Right. It
But
creates
there is
structure.
but there is a way that you can go, Cloud Shell to remove those at bulk too. Right. So there's no big deal.
Right.
But check it out. All right, Rod, that you're finally back. Is he stuck? I can't tell.
Can you see me? Can you hear me at least? How about
Yeah.
that?
We can hear you. You're
Yeah,
like
right.
every fourth frame gets lagged a bit, but that's okay.
Let's see if I can share my screen. I have a couple of things I wanted to share. Number one, let's see if you can see this. Can you see this? Can you
Yes.
see that screen? Yes. So this is a workshop that I've been working on, and it is in the final stages. I'm delivering it in beta tomorrow for our CCP group, and this is how to develop the golden prompt for Copilot for Security. Right. So it's you can see there it's like 72 slides so far. There are no hands-on at the moment, because why? Why would you guess that?
I don't know, actually.
Because if we suggest that customers do this in their own environment, it's going to cost against their SVUs. So
they're going to get
we're
SVU
actually
burned.
we're actually working on a SVU burn. Don't say that's a bad word.
Let
We're actually working on a workshop tenant. So budget's been approved for that. So that should come out soon. I'm actually delivering that in beta. The hope for this thing is to actually release it for our internal and external partners to be able to deliver here eventually.
So
Nice.
let me give you the technical reviewer, which you should send it by me so I can look over it, and the lawyer perspective on this.
Yeah.
Good is subjective.
It is.
It should be efficient prompting.
Let me try this again.
Optimized prompting.
All right. Next thing. Well, yeah, you're right. It'll probably be optimized for all the verbiage eventually. If anyone's interested, I'm actually doing an office hours on Copilot for Security tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow morning I'm doing the workshop. Tomorrow afternoon I'm doing the Microsoft National Office Hours talking about Copilot for Security. Tomorrow I'll put the link in the show notes and in the chat here shortly. But anyone can join. And if you want to get a look at Copilot for Security, if you don't think you've actually done that here on the show already, then you can do that. Last thing I have is, we talked about this last week. I showed my pricing, or what I was being charged for my SCU, my one single SCU. And last week you looked in here and there's really nothing, no charges. Well, there was a bug in billing for Copilot for Security. And that has been fixed as of yesterday, because yesterday I went in and sure enough, my billing is up to date. So
Yeah, I have my lab up where I have enough for at least a single SEU. But I want to make sure I have time to look at it and not turn it on and a Franklin happen. You guys remember when Franklin turned on what did he turn on? His American Express got charged like $10,000 or something.
Oh, that was Defender for IoT.
Yeah, was that what it was? Or
He got
something like that?
whammied like overnight. And it was like, oh, that was a dumb idea.
Yeah, lucky he has an
like,
American Express black card.
Yeah.
He's been done. Rod, your video is better, but your
I'm working
audio
on
is
it.
sounding like I guessed from last week. I mean, from Monday.
Oh my goodness. It's all.
You sounded just
screwed up.
like him now. But hey,
It's
we're not
really
going to keep
screwed
our
up.
current guest in the room while we banter back and forth. So we are still in the theme of Partner Month, and we have our next guest. This this company is very much well known as a major player in the MDR and XDR, and they also are a front runner in the early access program for Copilot for Security. So we like to welcome Randy Watkins from Critical Start. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Man, we appreciate you coming on. Welcome to the big house.
Thank you.
Hope you brought lots of cigarettes and Twinkies. That's the only currency we use here.
Wow.
Oh man, I am broke.
Yeah, I'm
I
broke
thought it
too.
was SCU.
Maybe you'll take beef jerky and protein bars.
Yeah, we'll do that too.
That's smart.
Okay.
I keep the
Yeah.
shank ready. Where's my shank? Oh, it's right there. We
Keep
keep
a
the shank
shank?
ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So, Randy,
Okay.
Critical Start, and you are also the Chief Technology Officer of Critical Start.
That's what I'm told.
Look at that with the big wigs. So, would you mind doing an introduction to our guest? And by no means be shy. We want to know all about Critical Start and what you guys do, and then maybe we'll segue into this thing that everybody's talking about, this Copilot thing. So, please, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah. So it started on a cold winter's eve in 2011. No, I mean Critical Start was founded in 2012. Our founder CEO Rob Davis was the EVP of security at RSA when they had their breach. He went on the worldwide apology tour. Saw that a lot of organizations were definitely not as secure as they thought they were, and started Critical Start as a way to improve security posture. That was back in 2012. We were originally a value-added reseller in the traditional sense. We were reselling security solutions, providing professional services. We got about 3-4 years into that, and we saw no matter what the solution was we were selling, customers couldn't operationalize it. So we looked at the space and said, well, how do we augment the shortage in both headcount and expertise to where they can really get ROI from their security investment? And the only option out there at the time was MSSPs. So we looked and we said, well, we need to do something. What if we did MSSP, but we actually provided value instead of taking money for nothing? And that's how we launched the service. A year later, Gartner decided to create a term called MDR, and we kind of related with that, and that's the direction that we took it in. We started out originally integrating with products that used to be best of breed: Silence, Carbon Black, Splunk, OpenDNS. Long live OpenDNS. And then we've kind of slowly migrated towards what we now consider to be industry leading and best of breed. Really partnering, going in with Microsoft and helping customers operationalize their Microsoft investment, utilize that E5 license to really measurably improve their security posture. So we use APIs, we leverage Sentinel, we bring in all those alerts, and then our 24/7 staff will resolve every single alert, regardless of criticality, regardless of priority, critical, high, medium, or low. We're going to resolve them all with contractual SLAs of 1 hour to lower that attacker dwell time and get them out of your environment as quickly as possible.
That's the best pitch I've heard in the month of April.
That's pretty good.
Wait for my
Nailed
trophy.
it. That's why he's the CTO.
That's why
You
you
nailed it.
CTO.
Now, before we go into all that, because that was amazing, we have an important question from Anton. Fender or Gibson, Randy?
Ooh, neither. So I play bass, and both Fender and Gibson are mediocre at best on bass. So I have a Music Man and a Federa, two dream basses that I had. I don't have a lot of money. I just spend what I have irresponsibly. So it's Fender and Music Man, or Federa and Music Man.
Federa I've
Perfect.
heard
Thanks
of
for
before.
letting me distract from the entire point of the conversation. But that was
mean,
a great question. I thought it was going to spur a debate, and I loved how you went with two options off the table. So thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Edward, up to you.
Oh man, so once again, great pitch. I think I want to get me a Critical Start contract for just my lab. I just want to do it there. I know a lot about you guys. I am surprised as I went back through all the archives. You guys have not been on the show, and I would have bet the farm that you guys had, because considering how many people we know over there, both past and present, and but that's neither here nor there. You're here now, so
Yeah.
With the threat landscape being what it is, it's changing. It's some places getting better, some places getting worse. Nothing seems to be off the table as far as these advanced persistent threat actors now. It looks like a new tool has come into the defenders or protectors arsenal, which is Copilot for security. You know, and it's an AI driven technology incorporating machine learning and large language models with Microsoft's branding and intelligence to get it Copilot. And as we talked to James Key, who was the program manager at Microsoft, about their front running partners, your name came up as a suggestion to have on the show. Hence, let's have you on the show. So, is Copilot for security changing things? Is a very subjective question. Is it changing things, the way security practitioners work, and is it changing things for you? And you're the CTO of this, so I'm sure that this is your baby, that this is happening.
I'm pretty involved with it. So is it changing things? Absolutely. You talk about how AI and LLMs are contributing to Copilot. It's a new tool in our arsenal. It's also a new tool in the attacker's arsenal. ChatGPT wasn't out for more than 24 hours before Bart GPT had already scanned the dark web and started writing exploit code. So it's definitely something that was absolutely necessary to add to our quiver to take on those kind of new attacks that are coming faster, more accurately. It essentially turns anybody with an idea for a malicious act into a advanced attacker. Mm-hmm. So having the same thing for kind of newer analysts that are coming straight out of college, straight out of high school, they want to get into cybersecurity. Maybe they have a couple of certificates, they get hired into a SOC. Being able to go into Copilot and really use that as a mentor, as a guide, as your expert. It's definitely going to change things. It's going to revolutionize the way that we interact with alerts coming in, what we expect our analysts to do, the human factor in all of it, in addition to making them more efficient and able to get through those alerts more quickly. So I've been really impressed with Copilot. We started using ChatGPT right when it came out and started to see what it could do, feeding it email headers, feeding it exploit code, saying, what does this do? Feeding it just alert names and saying, what should we look for? That was already powerful enough. Now you automate that with all of the telemetry that Microsoft is collecting, and man, it's already really, really good. And it's going to get better with the release of GPT-5 and all the investment that Microsoft has dumped into OpenAI. So we're really looking at this as being a substantial evolution in security analytics and really our ability to defend against these attacks that are, again, coming hot and heavy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, whether we're talking to previous guests on the show and probably more guests are going to come on, but I'm like talking to the customers now and seeing how they're interacting with the product, because this is something that Microsoft releases a superpower to everybody. Even our adversaries can, with enough stealth, can buy it.
Yep.
But now you've given this powerful tool directly to the customer, right? I don't think Microsoft is very much giving a particular technology to a service provider exclusively, right? It's generally it's consumer based, and then your companies come on and provide value, expertise, advisorship to it. It's sort of scary. I mean, you've given a lot, and it seems the only deterrent right now, unfortunately, it's going to be overcome. It's the price model. You can play, but it's going to cost you to play.
Yeah,
you can play all you want, right? But once that's been figured out, the same way they figured out Microsoft Sentinel log ingestion cost, now it's not a non-factor, right? People have figured it out. So when you're looking at this innovation, where does how are you creative? As a CTO, and you got the tools, you got everything, you got budget. You're like, okay, I have the thing. How do you get creative to say, I want to make the best use of this, and this is how we're going to either create a new thing within CS, or this is how we're going to improve something? Because that's things I'm still scratching my bald head around that.
Yeah, and it's kind of a little bit of both, right? I mean, you have to look at both avenues of creating something new versus improving what's there. And Rod, I absolutely love what you're getting ready to release with the how to build a better prompt, because it's all in the prompt. So we run kind of internal education on how to construct better prompts, and that's going to carry through to Copilot. Now, the table stakes with Copilot is really enabling analysts that previously may not have been able to meet that learning curve of how to utilize all the capabilities of Azure Sentinel to really utilize all the capabilities of Azure Sentinel. So KQL query building, and that's table stakes. The alerts come in, you can kick out a KQL query to identify all the different assets that executable's been on, what user context it's run under, identify any lateral movement that's based on those executables. That's improving what we already have. That's adding efficiency to the analyst. It's adding effectiveness to the analyst. It's taking somebody that may not have been comfortable writing KQL queries and had to escalate that to a tier 2 or a tier 3 to write it for them. And it's really enabling them to chase down these threats to the nth degree without having to reach out for additional assistance. Then you get to the build side, right? How can we build this into our platform to really capitalize on automation? How do we do 90% of the job before the analyst even touches it? And that's where a little bit of supervised machine learning combined with Copilot comes in handy. Because the way our back end works, we have what we call our trusted behavior registry. We're a security company. We had to make at least 15 acronyms, and TBR is one of them. So we build our TBR, and essentially what that's doing is it's not identifying bad behavior. It's identifying known good behavior. And if it doesn't exactly match a known good behavior, we assume it's bad. So we treat every alert like the American justice system, but the exact opposite. Every alert is guilty until proven innocent. TBR proves it innocent.
Yeah.
Now, if it doesn't exactly match, we can start grabbing key value pairs, automatically populate that into a Copilot query, and then push that out to either develop a KQL, run the KQL, pull back that additional information, and bake that into the alert before the analyst even has a look at it.
Yeah.
So we can use our automation that we built in our playbooks to activate the automation and Copilot capabilities that Microsoft has through Sentinel and directly with Copilot to really flesh out 95% of that alert before a human has to look at it and go, okay, based on all of this, here's the verdict. Now let's take some action. Then we can use Copilot to fill that in as well, right? So one thing that we've seen Copilot and kind of ChatGPT in general be really excellent at is feed it an alert that came in, and it will give you 10 different ways to stop that alert from ever showing up again. So now we're not just doing detection and response, which is a reactive control, kind of looking at NIST, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and govern. Detection and response, reactive, we can start protecting those assets and identifying the assets that are more vulnerable to those and really helping customers long-term improve their security posture instead of just being constantly reactive to these threats.
Yeah, I think that anybody can really understand threat intelligence can come in and use that to say, show me tactics and behaviors, not the IOCs, because if it's an unknown hash in one of your hash repositories, virus Tobal, you're not going to get a hit. But show me behaviors that look like this, and especially if you guys do a known good. And I love the way you go a known good, because very rarely is the entire enterprise compromised. So you're always going to have at least one or two things like this is a known good. This doesn't look like that, right? Oh, you're doing it reverse way. So that's excellent. And to do it at scale is hard when you don't really own the life cycle or the ownership of the device of a sort. You're just an overlay to the customer. But that's pretty cool. Now we've gone through. I haven't pulled your site up on another tab yet, but have you guys already started promoting Copilot offerings within Critical Store? I
already looked at that. Hey, yeah. But will you put Copilot for security on there sometime?
We will, as soon as we figure out exactly how to deal with that pricing issue that you talked about, Edward, because that's the variable component. That's a real. It's a touchy subject for service providers if we're going to use something that's associated with credits in a customer's account that they're going to have to pay for. So inevitably, what the customer wants to know is how much is your service going to cost using Copilot to us? What's our Copilot cost going to be if you're using it to run queries? So we're working on building in that automation, but also a way to monitor how much we're using, monitor that cost expectation to the customer, and figure out how we can set expectations with them so they don't experience huge overages because we're using the power of Copilot inside of our offering.
That's going to be difficult for almost every partner, your competitors, your frenemies, and everything else, because it's sort of like a threat hunting activity without valid indicators of compromise. you're constantly doing threat hunting, saying we can't go on a pound of cure versus an ounce of prevention, right, or a dollar of that. If I had to approach it in a manner, you know, would you look at it as a incident response selling motion, meaning go to a customer and go, the first SCU is on us, right, in your environment, and then we come in and we validate this right here, or are because I do believe that some incident responders, but the bad part about that, and now as I learn more about it, that's not really an effective way because you don't have any history. It needs to run a while before he knows anything about that. So I'm really watching partners to help drive innovation on this because you got to make money, right?
Yes.
Writing
Yeah.
plugins is going to be the thing. And another thing I believe is going to be hard for you. When I say for you, I mean all partners, protecting your IP.
So protecting our IP is almost less of a concern.
Mhm.
I think the prompting for Copilot, everybody's kind of running along the same track, and occasionally there's going to be a unique idea that takes everybody else a week to reverse engineer and become competitive with it.
Mhm.
So protecting IP is much less of a concern. As far as the Copilot utilization goes and establishing costs and how do we kind of balance that, working with James is great, and maybe there is a way where the service provider can have their own bucket that we can apply to different customers before we utilize their bucket. We also do, like for Sentinel, like you said, we face the same problem. All data should go into Sentinel, but we charge based on the data real time, and a lot of customers had a problem with the predictability. Well, we turned around and we created cost ingest analysis to say, hey, every month we're going to go in and look at what your expectation for Sentinel costs are and what your actual Sentinel costs are. And we're going to identify why it's higher or lower. Maybe your network admin turned on debug logs on your firewall, and now you just spiked through the roof. Let's dial that back and really focus on the logs that we need. There's a potential to do the same thing for Copilot. Right. And maybe it's like, hey, under certain conditions with certain alerts, we're going to run these Copilot queries to identify these different things. The approximate cost based on the volume of these alerts is going to be X, right? So there's a lot of thought processes going on in the back end. People a lot smarter than I am thinking through how do we really use this and operationalize it without either creating anxiety at the customer or creating overages at the customer.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things I think immediately you can think of from a cost savings, right? If you develop prompt books for the customer, right? So they use something that's a quantified result. What's the other thing? Oh, using my sessions, or at least my sessions, the cache sessions within the last period of time. The other thing, and I think you kind of hit on it there, is to do kind of that monthly cost basis to determine what they're actually using. And unfortunately, right now, there's nothing we can do to identify who's doing what at the moment, except for the sessions. But I think eventually you'll be able to see who's asking stupid questions because it's an AI.
Yes.
You want to eventually go in and see if this Copilot for security thing and can, add 2 + 2. Well, that costs like 0.01, but it still costs something, right? So it does all that stuff, but it's intended for security purposes.
Yeah, stupid questions is definitely
recognition. Oh, sorry, Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Stupid questions is definitely something that's on our radar. We have a little bit of a benefit in the fact that we've built a front end. Our platform is called Core, the Security Operations Risk and Response Platform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our analysts work out of. It's transparent to the customer 100%. They can see everything we do, and it's all bidirectional sync with Sentinel. But using that as the front end, we can see who's asking stupid questions and how much they're costing customers, right? Because an analyst runs a Copilot prompt from Core. We're going to log that prompt. We're going to log the cost of it. We're going to log the results of it. We're going to cache all that internally. So we will be able to at least see who the more heavy users of Copilot are and what kind of prompts they're running. And then we also have a mechanism called event hints, where depending on the alert that comes in, we can give the analysts some idea of what to do. So we can take some guidance from your presentation on how to build better Copilot queries and say, hey, in this scenario, you're going to want to, make sure you capture this, this, and this, and then specify that you want it run from this user context. So we do have a couple of ideas around that as well.
Yeah.
You gave me a awesome idea though, by the way. So I talked about golden prompts. I'm going to have a section just on stupid prompts.
There you go.
Yeah. Don't do this. Yeah.
Equally as important. Don't run a single faceted prompt. Show me every network connection across my entire environment. That's going to cost you some money.
Yeah, and the sub thing is, if you look at the way Copilot is, if I had to translate this into a traditional, occupation, do you want to question like a lawyer, or do you want to question like an interrogator?
Yeah.
But they're very different, right? And you can I write that down, Rod. Because lawyers they ask these questions to get you to give up more information that they really wanted, that they're doing it. Interrogator asks you the question as though they already know the answer.
Yeah.
Right. Now, weren't you at the scene of the murder at 11:32 with a knife in your hand, and you were standing 6 feet over the body?
Yeah, but now I'm kind of hesitant with that. I may have to wipe that out because the interrogator, they are trying to manipulate the response, and we don't want to manipulate the response. We want an accurate response. We just want to ask the right question.
Not
Or maybe
necessarily.
like some sort of check, like Copilot's like, oh, hey, that question's a heavy question. Are you sure you want to ask it?
I was
That'd be
thinking
cool.
that too. Yeah, saying
Right.
that, hey, based on previous sessions, you've asked this question before with an average return time of 2 minutes. Do you want to ask that question again?
That still costs
No.
something, by the way.
They still
Yeah,
cost
it kind of takes me back to Tanium days, where depending on what you were looking for, you could get an answer really quick. You could break your entire network. No one knows. It's kind of a roll of the dice. Having some sort of safety check somewhere in there may not be a bad idea. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And then if it's a really dumb question, are you really sure you want to do that?
Last chance. Yeah.
Ooh, just shade throw that tanium. Mike,
was
you
gonna
gonna
say
take that?
Right. That was good shade. That was good shade.
That was good
Randy, I was
shade.
gonna
I
say
take it.
earlier, I like the approach. Like let's just do some pattern matching here. Like, okay, the month in the life of X customer, what is everybody's gonna be different, right? So anyone cut it's really hard to like nail that down between like, well, tell me exactly how much it's gonna be. Like, well, it depends, right? Everyone's favorite consulting answer. You are going to have ultimately probably a completely different experience than even maybe another organization in your same sector with a similar seat count, just dependent on all kinds of different factors. So it's never you can't almost give a static price model anymore. It has to be based on learning the patterns and the flow and the day-to-day of that org, and then maybe after the fact, like, okay, here's what we've seen. Maybe to your point, you can use your service to help improve, which I think is a fantastic service. And then it's an estimate, right? It's an estimate. It's a tough thing to nail down.
I tell you something, that if you think about the way humans think as far as improvement that is quantifiable but not really rooted in actual progress, the minute you go with the ability to improve your secure score, then all bets are off. People are going to want their secure score. Damn the cost of the SCU. My secure score has to be up more. And just think about when you look at that, maybe create a secure score for that for Copilot for security, whereas your score gets better as the prompt result times come in shorter, but you get more relevant results. You have to gamify it a little bit, because there's no
That's
gamification of it right now.
It gives
You
you
have a
feedback.
user efficiency score,
Right.
and then give badges for people that meet certain criteria. Like, man, you've resolved 100 alerts by using $1.50 in Copilot charges that only took 3 seconds total to return.
I love that, actually. People want that. Well, I would think people would want that. Like, I would want regular feedback. Like, hey, by the way, here's that way that you can use me better. I mean, what a fantastic solution.
And me being the Microsoft salesperson that Brody accuses me to be, I would definitely go into Azure and have the secure score. Your secure score can be improved 100 points by implementing, Copilot for security and buying 100 SCUs.
Now
you get a point
Top
per
donor.
SCU.
Now, here's something that we thought about internally, and this is almost a philosophical question: is what we don't want to do is solve problems that Copilot's going to solve for us about Copilot. So we talk about expensive prompts. How long is it going to be until Microsoft goes, we rewrote the prompt to be more efficient and return the actual results? Right. I mean, it's a short period of time. So we're really trying to pick and choose the problems that we solve that we see being a long-term problem, and not try to focus on something where we're like, man, the next iteration of Copilot, this whole thing's going to be moot. There's no sense in coding around it.
Right. When like you said 5 or whatever they're going to call it, comes out, it'll be presumably more efficient, yada yada. So everything will change, and maybe we don't have a Rod SCU burn discussion, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You're gonna get me in trouble.
You're gonna get Rod in trouble again. And I'm not bailing him out this time.
right.
But your job as the CTO and your peers are going to be the hardest, Randy, because you have to look at the present, but you have to have the ability to look down the road to say, innovations are going to come. How do I stay relevant, but at the same time stay, you know, in the know what is the current capability of it and predict it? Because unless you own the tech, or you closest to the tech ownership of it, it can be in that mind share. You're still guessing, right? Now, is there anything of technology insider trading? Probably. Closer you are to Microsoft, maybe a little bit more you get. But it goes back to the question: how do you stay innovative? How do you stay creative when you see these things, but you don't own the tech? And it sounds like you got a really good handle on, hey, I have an idea, and this is what you do. Because eventually, you're going to learn a lot on other people's dime. It just happens that way, right? The front runners are the ones that go out. We used to call them beta testers.
Yep.
Now we call them customers. And that's how it is right now, right?
Early adopters.
Early
Yeah,
adopters.
early
That's the thing.
adopters. That's what
Early
it is. You bring up a good point about, how do you stay innovative? How do you stay kind of looking forward? And the biggest thing for me is it's not a one-person job. And we have a team of people that participated in private preview. We involved a bunch of different functions. It wasn't just myself and product management. It was also our SOC. We bring in a lot of our senior analysts, junior analysts, folks that are actually going to use it. We talk to customers. Microsoft has been very forward in approaching customers about Security Copilot. And anytime they bring it up, I'll interrupt the conversation and say, what would you use this for? And just start getting their ideas. And if they have a good idea, then, that's a problem that we can solve too. So it's really about getting a collective of more perspective than just one person.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's a very viable way to put everybody into the room to have these focus and brainstorm groups. But this is one of those things that you have to be careful, because what if you get Copilot envy, like certain people in your organization? Well, I want to use Copilot. How come you're not letting me do it? Right? I want to learn this too. And I've been reluctant to really get into the place where I have a limited, literally one SCU. I say, I'm not going to mess this up. When I get in here, I'm going to be very deliberate about what I'm going to use it for, to try to learn as much as I can, because I get not a blank check here.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have always been one of the top XDR, MDRs, MSSPs, and I changed the P. I don't say provider, I say partner. You guys have really been talked about as a partner, not a provider. And that's good, because we got a lot of MSSPs who are not. They're just providers, and they're not really providing service. And they definitely not providing partnership, right? I want someone to go down in flames with me. If I go down, you're going down too. Yep. So, yeah, I'm not going to, everybody's going down. Yeah. Nobody gets off the Titanic. Everybody goes down. Just stay with me.
Edward has no lifeboats. So.
No lifeboats. Cut them off a long time ago.
There's a lot there.
Let me ask this question of you. You can't hyper-focus on this. There are other things to do.
Correct.
How do you balance that? Because you got other there are other innovation vehicles that Copilot has nothing to do with that still can be solved without this AI stuff. Are you being able to balance your attention to say, hey, these are things that we've thrown a lot of money and a lot of human capital behind, and there's still huge, revenue and innovation opportunities, and I still got to do this thing. Are you balancing that pretty well?
Oh yeah. We have we develop Tiger teams for things that pop up, like Microsoft private previews, like unified console. We have a Tiger team for that. Copilot, we stand up a Tiger team for that. And then there's our actual product teams that focus on other services that we're trying to release. Vulnerability prioritization, asset management, risk assessment modules. We've really been expanding the breadth. And you talk about MSSPs. We really seen those in the earlier days as a vehicle to a checkbox of compliance, but not providing values. Then MDR came along and provided value around detection and response. And now the market's kind of looking at MDRs to expand their services to replace MSSPs while still providing the value. So we have a lot of different things going on at the exact same time, while still trying to innovate on the MDR front. And for the love of God, keep up with Microsoft. we don't have $10 billion to invest year over year in security, but you guys just release product after product and feature after feature that we have to keep up on. So there is a kind of a high wire that we're walking, trying to keep all of those different priorities and projects balanced while still keeping up with customer demand for additional features and functionality that Microsoft is putting out. So we got Defender for Server, Defender for Containers. There's new capabilities that just came out in Defender for Identity. We have the Insider Risk Management piece coming out that's built into Sentinel. So it is a lot, but we do that with very targeted teams that have very specific things that they're looking into. And we do kind of agile release cycles to get those features and functionalities out as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And it's hard for security operations to adhere to that type of framework with these 2-week sprints, right? Assuming. And the other thing is, nobody will say it, but Copilot for security may not be right for every customer, right? It may not be the thing that immediately at that moment in time, it may not be right for them, right? Because if you look at their risk exposure and posture, nobody's doing it 100% right, because security is not static, right? If you stay static, the CVE will catch up with you. It'll catch up with you eventually, right? So you have to, customers are having to watch what their peers are doing, and I still don't see this a lot, and it's disappointing. A lot of industries still don't collaborate because there's some shame to saying you've been breached, right? Or compromised, which is the more intelligence. I wasn't hacked, I was compromised. Shit, you were hacked. And that would greatly improve it, but they're relying on vendors a lot when there should be a lot of peer exchange. Just like, hey man, don't be next, don't let this happen to you, and be able to do those things. So we're all got jobs for a while, even with this AI stuff, right? Until AI decides to replace us. We won't have jobs when AI decides you're no longer needed, right? Because we have to feed it, and they want to be fed. It won't be fed.
What was that? What was that movie? The Shop of Horrors. Feed me. Well, see
Little Shop
more.
of Horrors.
Yeah, Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah,
with a killer plant.
That's
actually great soundtrack to that movie too. The whole soundtrack is pretty good.
Yeah,
dating ourselves.
Old.
I am old. I am old.
I'm happy that somebody gets that. So.
I actually got something stacked up in my basement on 2 3-com super stacks switches from back in the day, or hubs, whatever they're downstairs. So one more thing, Randy, we're going to be respectful of your time. How do you? We got all this learning. We got one of the masters of creating content and learning right here. How do you navigate through the minutia to be able to do these things? Where if Rod wasn't creating a workshop for better prompts, not good prompts, do you have a director or training of someone that comes in and say, hey, this is going to be the most effective to us? Because you got to cycle guys through learning, right? Because if I'm sitting here and I'm doing the good work, and I see my peer over here and he's getting to play with the shiny toys, I'm gonna give him a side eye. So how do you rotate? I want to understand your learning path to be able to do it.
Yeah, so we learning is something we have a very strong focus on internally. We have 3 or 4 different folks that are dedicated to learning and education in different functions throughout the organization. So there's like kind of the sales and pre-sales aspect of it, and then there's the kind of just leadership and growth aspect of it that's run by a different team. And then in the SOC, we actually develop and run our own training. So before an analyst ever becomes a tier 1 analyst, it's 3 months of training, and they learn everything from OSI model to TTPs to alert resolution to become a tier 1. Then there's a training path to get to a tier 2. Then there's a training path to move up and out into the organization. So you can go up to a tier 3, you can go into pre-sales, post-sales, you can go into instant response or pen testing and do internships there. But we do develop our own training internally, and we have somebody who kind of revises that after every analyst class we bring through. So once we start kind of getting our hands wrapped around how we're going to leverage Copilot, we can bake that into the training, and that just becomes part of our rhythm in educating the new analysts that are coming in. So the fact that we've always had this in-house developed training program really just sets the precedence of you will continue learning, and we're going to make sure that we're putting the most relevant stuff in front of you. So example, I led throughout the organization multiple classes on how to use ChatGPT to accomplish your job. And I did that with multiple functions, whether it was marketing, sales, pre-sales, SOC, onboarding and implementation. And man, Rod, a lot of what I did was how to build better prompts. A lot of people use it like an advanced Google, and I have prompts that are thousands of words long.
That's it. See, people have gotten in this really bad habit of like sticking like 3 or 4 unconnected words in a search engine, but then they have to spend the time they're on like 5 different pages to find exactly what it is they want. Right. So instead, it's going back to just standard conversation because it's natural language. People forget that I can actually ask a question and ask it. Pretend you're talking to a person.
Right.
Imagine giving them some search engine term. You know, that's how you talk back and forth.
But that's the technology, right? We all learned like, okay, I need the keywords, so the algorithm gets me the article of the 10-year-old thing I'm trying to solve. We have to go back to how we wanted to treat the internet back in like the 90s and stuff, where it's like, oh, hello, Ask Jeeves. This is what I want, right? You know, like that's what we got to get back to.
Yeah.
I mean, it went from just searching those keywords back to verbosity. And it's not act like you're talking to one person. My most effective prompts, the whole first paragraph is creating a team. I code through ChatGPT, and my first chunk is you are a development team.
Yes.
You consist of an engineer, you consist of a QA, you consist of and then you talk to the team and you give them the problem. And it's funny because if you just run the chat or you run the prompt kind of silent, you get the output. But if you include at the end, let me know all your crosstalk. You will see every one of them talking to each other. And the engineer says this, and then the developer says this, and then QA says, you're all stupid. You need to rewrite this into 3 lines of code here. So, I mean, I have a lot of fun with ChatGPT. I mean, used it to build scavenger hunts for the kids, used it to build car routes for vacations, used it to build an Outlook plugin to automatically schedule my flights. It's a really kind of functional thing. And your imagination is what limits you. And Copilot is really the same way. You're an incident response team. You consist of an analyst, an incident response engineer, and a forensics expert. Make sure you're capturing things in a way that can be court admissible. And those prompts can be built out in extreme verbosity, and you can really drive a lot of very valuable results out of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to tell Randy, you just blew my mind because I have been giving Copilot or GPT a persona, right? I've been giving it like, this is you, and this is what we want to accomplish, and here's what I need from you. But I've never given it a team's persona with different perspectives and the crosstalk. Yeah, you just blew my mind. I'm changing how I prompt forever. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. I'm happy I could occupy your weekend.
Yeah, there you go. Right. But it sort of upends what I thought was a clever comment of prompt like a investigator rather than a lawyer. But now I'm sort of rethinking that. I think it's a little bit of both, because if I had to go back, I would ask, members of the jury, you have seen the evidence and you've seen this right here, and I provided this by so and so, and here's the irrefutable artifacts as given to me by the investigator on the scene. What would you conclude is the actual blah, 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 given that you've had all of this over a 3-month period of time? So that's actually pretty cool. I see you writing that down, Rod. Write it down.
I'm writing something else here. But you are prolific today. I love the Copilot envy thing. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, well, I took my ADD drugs today, so I'm good. This is good. You're winning. So you currently get the belt for the rest of the month until somebody else can up in Critical Start. Rest of the partners be jealous. Yeah,
prompt like no one is watching. Yeah, kind of like the dance thing.
Like nobody's watching. Well, Mr. Watkins, thank you so much. I feel like this conversation was very, personal. Like I said, I'm surprised we didn't have you guys on the show. I think there was some just scheduling thing, but thanks for coming on here. You are the guest. You get to have all the closing remarks. Go ahead and pump your company up. And what do you want to ask, the Microsoft Insight Security Copilots? Because we're Copilots. What do you want to ask them? We'll give you an answer.
What do I want to ask you guys?
Or what do you want to tell us? Just
What do
tell
I
us.
want to well, so I'll say this. Critical Start supports products outside of Microsoft. And by far, the biggest wave that we see is Splunk, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, all those customers wanting monitoring, but they want to move to E5. So they don't want a gap in coverage and they need to get to the E5. We can come in, take over that environment, help them migrate, and help them get full utilization of Defender for Identity, Defender for Office, Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Endpoint, and really get them from best of breed to best of portfolio in a way that makes sense and utilizes ESIF dollars. So we are fast track and ESIF approved. We're in all the different programs for CSI, so we can do workshops. If you need anything, whether it's just a sounding board for your Microsoft implementation, you need a 24/7 MDR provider, you want an MDR provider that's going to have accountability with contractual SLAs resolving every alert, check out Critical Start. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, you guys have a really good history before you went all in on Microsoft. That you touched a lot of products. You were channel partners, gold, platinum, diamond for a lot of technology. So you have the scars, right? This is not academic. You guys are proving yourself out in the field, and so you have an approach of understanding what the failures are and don't repeat them. So
we've been partners with Microsoft since Microsoft was the punchline to the joke of security. And I
remember those days, the pie in the face at the courthouses.
Oh my God. The little arm that comes down to block you from going around, but you can see all the tire tracks in the snow going around the little guard. It was it was an eye opener when we actually tested Defender ATP and saw the amount of visibility that it had and the potential that was there because it's Microsoft. And then to see the advancements and evolutions in Defender for Identity, hands down the most valuable defender aside from endpoint in the entire stack. Defender for Identity saves bacon. Yes. So, I mean, whatever we can do to get customers converted over to that stack where it's true XDR. And I did a podcast a long time ago. I used to host my own called Son of a Breach. And I talked to Ann Johnson about your definition of XDR. And to this day, I still think Microsoft is not only the best executioner of what true XDR is, but the only executioner of what true XDR is. Yeah. So we're leaning in. We know how to use it. We're experts at it. And we're happy to help other customers really consolidate their security portfolio into a simplified architecture that is effective and efficient at stopping breaches.
Yeah. And you said something, you were saying that MDI is, will save your bacon. You're right. Short of turning off AD, you're asking for it. Because I live off the land now. PowerShell and WMI. You won't see me coming. And once I get your hashes, I own you.
All your hashes belong to us.
Yeah. And you know that all those other security tools can also use Copilot for security. What I think they have, like, what's it, Betty or Loretta? What's the name of that AI that they have? I don't know. But,
I have no idea. Yeah, and you're going to see a resurgence of one that was once my favorite product. It will probably come back, which is Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Watch it. Watch what it does when it starts looking at behavior patterns. Because the worst thing you can happen is not have application governance and someone download a payload of AI application into your environment. Not download it, because you don't download in traditional sense. It's a SaaS. But once they've passed those creds and start doing user-like APIs, inquiries, and then they start escalating, because I can steal your session, your token, reroute you. I got you, right? That's all the toehold you're going to need. And so Defender for Cloud Apps is going to come back around, and MDI will save your hash. It will save your hash.
Never mind that. Just like Active Directory is not going away anytime soon. That's why you need MDI. Net. Right?
Yep. Full stop.
That's the deal.
It's stuck. Yeah. Well, there are some rarities where you're seeing people that have decided we're going to stay up here, but that's a business decision, because you got to force the legacy apps out, and you have to make it very cognizant. Your technology officer has to say, we're going to modernize.
And here's my massive budget to do so. Yeah.
And you don't have to eliminate Active Directory. You have to minimize the attack exposure of it on how you rely on these things, right? And it's just administrators get you hacked because they're RDPing over to
Damn
stuff,
admins.
and they're leaving they're leaving our artifacts inside, uh, uh, on the machines that they remoted to do it, rather than doing PowerShell invoke sessions, right?
Look
Or
how
PS
smart
sessions.
you are after reading all that. Yeah, you should.
You need to take that test really quick.
Yeah,
Take it
take that
really
test
quick.
already so you can
I
get the
will.
creds. Manny, this has been awesome, man. It's been really great talking with you. You're obviously passionate and knowledgeable of what you do, and just the way you describe your training program and how you want to work with customers. It's been a very it's been an enlightening conversation getting to know you, and I'd like to look more into Critical Start because of this. So thank you for the time today.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you so
thank you
much,
guys.
man.
I
This is
appreciate
really
the laid back but informative show y'all are putting on. It's refreshing. So I appreciate the conversation. Anytime you guys want me back on, just let me know. I'll clear my schedule for you.
Man, we'll
That would
appreciate
be
that.
awesome.
You want to
All
come
right.
on and host a little bit too? So Rod and all us can take some.
He's an old
vacation.
podcaster. He knows how to do this. He knows
Hey,
how to
I'm
do
doing
this.
this shit.
knows how to
I've
do
listened.
it.
I've listened to Son of a Breach because someone said it on our show. I was like, let me go hear about this. Big shout out to Ann Johnson. Come back on the show, Ann. We miss you.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
anytime you guys need me to pinch hit, I'm happy to.
We'll
Awesome.
hold you to it. We'll hold you
Thanks,
to it.
guys.
All right.
Take care, bud.
Have a good
Have a
one.
good one. Bye-bye.